Yeah, I mean, price does matter, but surprisingly, a lot of little things matter too. But oftentimes, why people aren't converting is because they don't understand what you're offering. They get frustrated by the experience and they can't find the information they need. And so that's often where we're doing lots of iteration. Everything in my life is an experiment, including my company, including our clients, like everything's an experiment. So thinking about things like, how can I experiment with my career? How will I get enough signal that that is something I love to do, or something I can afford to do, or something I want to do? Is it something the market wants? So I think the mistake that a lot of us make, and I probably was making at 18, was you jump to action. You jump to go do something, or you wait for it to come to you. And you have to find that right balance in the middle of saying, how can I take steps today to indicate, is this the right way forward for me or not?
Today, we're going to talk about data, particularly about how to optimize conversion rates, as well as understand how customers are interacting with our website using research, on the user research, right? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce AJ Davis, who is the founder and CEO of Experiment Zone, an agency which helps online businesses grow their revenue by improving the user experience on their website using scientific methods. Before starting Experiment Zone in 2017, AJ led optimization strategy for Fortune 500 companies during her tenure in Clearhead. She was also the lead UX researcher on the Google Optimized product. AJ, thank you so much for being here today and for your time. First of all, how is it going?
Great. Really excited for our conversation today.
Awesome. So perhaps we can start about what is it actually conversion rate optimization and why is it really important for business?
Yeah, conversion rate optimization basically improves and multiplies the efforts of every other marketing spend you have. So if you think about the investment you're making to get visitors to your site through SEO, ads, social, they all land on the same site. So if you use the process of conversion rate optimization and you're strategic and you measure what can impact and what does impact your visitors to be more likely to convert, more likely to order, then you can multiply and improve the ROI on all those other programs. So it's the process of figuring out what your customer needs on the site, the process of measuring it, and then the process of making sure you've implemented it in the right way.
Right. And how did you actually find out about the conversion rate? And I mean, how when there was at some point in your life that you actually found this out and this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it. So I found Google Optimized as part of a sprint week. So I was part of a group working on ideating for Google back in the day. And right. I got to work with a great group of people, and we were doing some research and doing some early discovery on this, what was going to become the next iteration of Google's experimentation tool. And so for several years, I researched and talked to people who are doing conversion rate optimization. And I'm on the other side, being objective, collecting that feedback, but also realizing, wow, that's really neat that they get to not only identify a problem, figure out a solution, but then really know if it worked in the real world. So I acted on that. I thought, hey, that's really neat. I want to go explore that. And so I packed up my bags, left Google, got a couple of funny looks as I walked out the door and decided to explore this world. And it's been a great ride.
Wow. And so who should actually be using conversion rates, and why is it perhaps in terms of the aspect of using it, who should actually be using? Should it be a regular Joe, or should it be just a specific type of service? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I like to think that, everyone should be able to think about how to make their site better. And there's like the lean guerrilla research methods that anybody can do. Ask the person at the coffee shop, hey, can you use my website? Is it working? And as you mature, as your company matures, that program also needs to mature. So we come in when companies realize they really have a conversion opportunity, they have an improvement, they have the opportunity to improve their experience, to drive better ROI across all their marketing efforts, and to give their customer a better experience. And once you start getting into those fine details instead of the basics, you really do need an expert. So we tend to work with companies that have tried it out, haven't seen any traction on their own. They're not getting good wins. They're not seeing big impact. And so they bring in experts like us to drive that program and strategy for them.
And when you think, or when is, in your opinion, the best time to actually start using it, the actual, or even optimizing? When is there a cycle that someone should look at, or you just start way off, or just from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, you should be making sure your brand message and your site experience works. So everyone should do some form of conversion rate optimization. When we start to talk about A/B testing, there are some specific qualifiers to make sure that you're getting a good ROI. So we often will talk to prospects about how much traffic they're getting, what their current conversion rates are, what their AOV and current order rates are, just to make sure that the return on the program is going to pay off, not just in the long term, but in the short term for them as well.
Nice. And in terms of, you mentioned A/B testing, how, in a practical way, what's a person who's really not been involved in the A/B testing, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it surprises some people to know that you can actually have two versions of a web experience live in the world at the same time. So there's some great tools that have been developed. Google Optimize we've been talking about, but there's a bunch of tools like Optimizely, A/B Tasty, Web Optimize, just a bunch of different platforms that each have their own strengths and weaknesses. And what they enable you to do is most typically what we call client-side testing, which means within the browser, you can switch out different elements so that half your traffic sees one, half your traffic sees the other experience. It gives people like us the ability to measure those two experiences, really take a close look at that data and understand the impact of that single change.
Interesting. And so how should you then, so let's say if I'm starting today, how should I approach my optimization? Should I have a goal? Should I have a set of rules when I start to optimize? Is there like a formula that you personally use or your company uses?
Yeah, I think at the core of everything, we need to know what our business goals are. And then we need to understand what friction's in the way to achieving that right now, in particular for conversion rate optimization, what's standing in the way of people becoming customers. And that answer is going to be different for every business. And then once you know the answer to that question, then you know where to start testing. So a lot of times companies get excited because they have this new technology and platform. They start testing things like blue button versus red button is the classic example. Most of the time, that's not going to move the needle and make a big difference to your customer. And so you've got to, if you're seeing things not working out, you've got to back up a few steps to make sure you understand. So if I were a CMO or a business owner trying to understand how to approach conversion rate optimization, I would be asking questions like, do I know why my customers aren't making it through the site? Why aren't visitors becoming customers? And then I would also be looking at my analytics data. What are my conversion rates for orders? What's my AOV? And then what's conversion rates between each step of the customer journey? Because that's another way to know where to start. Are people dropping off on the homepage? Are they dropping off on a category page or product page, cart, or checkout? So getting a good baseline reading of all of that will help you just understand what's going on. And then over time, you will address each of those points of the funnel and see improvements in those rates.
Interesting. So, I mean, what's been maybe an example of a chaos situation that you looked at this thinking, wow, they either have too many pages or it's like nothing is really working. Can you kind of like share an example just for me to understand how this whole, because everyone's talking a lot about data these days. Still, I think it's like you have to almost get a degree on all this, right? And so, can you give me like an example of a situation that you actually found thinking, wow, needs to either we need to slow these things down, or at least kind of really optimize certain steps before we actually can try to scale up the business?
Yeah, we worked with a women's apparel company, and one of the things that we did early on with them was we did that baseline rating we just talked about, and we saw big drop-offs at that category page.
Right.
And so what we then do is say, let's look at that page itself. So we have our designers and researchers who have that expertise in UX look at that experience and understand like what could be going wrong. If we don't know, we do more research. So we do usability testing, we bring in customers. But in this particular case, we realized that the products were showing below the fold. So it was a new brand to the market, relatively new, and they felt they needed to really explain why their products were better. And what ended up happening was they had several paragraphs of text right at the very top of the page. And theoretically, that makes sense. You read that you're reading about pants, you're reading the text about all that, and you like look at all the products. But humans aren't rational. We're not going to spend the time to do that. So we have to introduce information in different ways. So one of the first tests we did for them was just take that information and collapse it. It was still available if somebody did want to open it up and read it. So we got 2 reads on it. What was the impact of pushing product on the page? And how much interest was there at this step of the funnel to like learn more about the company? Right. And if I recall the numbers offhand, it was like less than 2% of people clicked on the learn more. People weren't ready to read about things at this point. And conversion rates went up over 20% for orders. So just by making the products visible, giving people something that would pique their interest, we drove them through the funnel all the way to ordering. So it's just one of those examples of good intention. We want to educate our customers, make them feel comfortable about our products, but the wrong execution. So we were able to help them over time, take that kind of key information and sprinkle it across the funnel instead of overwhelming the customer all in one moment.
Nice. And what's a good conversion rate versus, let's say, a bad conversion rate? And I know this might be subjective, I understand, but help us out.
Yeah, I'll give you some numbers because there are numbers that I look at and I go, wow, you really, really have a problem. But in reality, conversion rates are kind of like the market, right? Like the market goes up and down, and your goal is to outperform or not underperform the way a market moves. So in reality, there's tons of factors that impact your conversion rate, and we want to outperform all those factors. But if you're looking at that data saying, is this a company that really, really needs our help today, or are they just going to be able to have immediate impact? If we see anything below 5%, we know there's an opportunity. And if we see it below 1%, we know there's like a burning problem. Like we may talk about much bigger changes to their strategy. So those are sort of the benchmarks we look at to understand like where are they maturity wise? And then the other questions like we talked about become about, are there drop-offs in certain moments that are fueling that overall number?
So you actually probably look at the customer journey itself and even see point by point if that's converging itself on the funnel or in a sales email or whatever.
Yeah, we look at things, mostly we're looking at the site experience. So for example, what's the conversion rate of a visitor to see a category page? So we want to make sure that most people are seeing an overview of what products they can choose. And then the conversion to a product page is another good indicator. They're looking at specific products. So each of those moments in the funnel that become a piece of information or a source of a decision, we want to understand that as a conversion rate, as well as order conversion rate, that final move.
And is price sometimes a big, in terms of price of product or the offer, a big component on that conversion rates where you got to the point like, okay, guys, we have to actually improve the offer to make sure that actually our conversion rates go up, or it's not being really effective in a sense of closing the sale or the conversion. So,
yeah, price does matter, but surprisingly, a lot of little things matter too. And so, yes, we talk about price, we talk about shipping threshold. There's certain things where price sensitivity does matter to customers, but oftentimes why people aren't converting is because they don't understand what you're offering. They get frustrated by the experience and they can't find the information they need. And so that's often where we're doing lots of iteration. So price is something you can test and kind of understand how people react, but there's a lot of business factors as to whether it's realistic to move that price very significantly. But the UX you can change. It doesn't really impact the business in any way but up if it's a good experience.
Nice. And now, in terms of user research, I'm interested to see what exactly by user research do you mean? And what I'm trying to say is that, do you see what they do, or do you actually try to find out a bit more who they are, and if their names are John or Joanna, whichever? What is actually the purpose of doing the research of the user itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in our context of conversion rate optimization, we are the site. So we're the stand-in. If you imagine a physical store, we're the person putting the storefront on and designing the aisles, designing the cash register. And so as much as any store would want to know their customer, the better you know them, the better you can speak to them, have the right product offering for them, understand them. So there's a big, big picture of know who your customer is. But very tactically, with conversion rate optimization, doing things like usability testing, you can do tree testing to understand if your navigation is working. You can explore very, very specific questions with user research tools that will help you understand what should we then go A/B test to make sure we're putting the best experience out there that's going to convert the best. So we do some of those very broad things if we have customers that are going through transition or haven't done that look at their customers more broadly. But very tactically, we're always doing research to complement our roadmap for testing.
And what kind of tools again do you use again? You said surveys. What else?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different tools in the researcher toolbox. So surveys, moderated or unmoderated usability or prototype testing. Interviews is a great tool as well. We will do like click tracking and some complementary type of analytics work, on-site, off-site surveys. We have done things like diary studies, but it hasn't been as like prominent of a method as these. And then sometimes we just do like very tactical, like practical research. So we'll talk to the sales team or we'll talk to the representatives if there's a physical store to understand and pick the brains of someone else in the company who offers that subject matter expert on the customers, in particular if the customers are hard to get to.
Nice. And is user research and UX research the same or not really?
Ooh, that's like a good philosophical question here. I use them pretty interchangeably. I think there's probably some good debate in the community about which of the terms to use. So user experience research is looking at the experience the customer is having or the users having, whereas you could argue user research is really more about your customer and persona development, like that bigger picture. To me, it's the similar skill set, and it's just about what question you're asking as to which of those two camps you might be leaning towards. I don't use it carefully enough to distinguish one or the other as different.
Interesting. And coming back to the UX, let's say research at Google, what actually did you actually recreate something that was brand new at Google, or did you simply improve what Google was trying to do at the time?
Yeah, so the Google optimized product was developed like net new, but there were other experimentation products on the market that Google offered. So, in some part we looked at what existed, but we as a team were building something net new that could be kind of blue sky, anything could go to fit user needs. So it was a really nice, like complementary, innovative experience, but with access to a lot of people doing optimization and experimentation. So we could found and create a product based on how real people were using existing products.
And out of curiosity, what kind of business did you actually manage to speak to? You said you managed to speak to a few at Google.
Yeah, I can't name any specifics,
Sure,
of course, because we did talk to like a huge variety of companies from like entertainment, news and publishing, apparel or typical like retail type things. I can't think of a company that wouldn't have been included in the research. It was a very, very broad set of different industries.
And video. How or what do you try to see when you, let's say, a YouTube video? Mm-hmm. Do you do any sort of let's say, or do you try to do any optimization on the actual video when you try to extract any data from the video?
That's not something that we've done. Where usually how we intersect with video is we're not creating any of those assets, but we might help with our clients understand, is it worth having and creating all those video assets? So we'll do, placement type testing, and then what's the right moment in the customer journey to see that. So everything we're doing is on the website itself. And so it's just about, is there video content that exists or would exist in the future that we can help them make decisions about? There are definitely agencies that live and breathe video and video interactions and all that. And that's probably its own fun world. I always think about I don't know if you know this, but like Disney A/B tests all their movies. So if you've seen any of the Avenger movies, those have all been A/B tested in theaters, and they'll slice and dice the video in different ways. So there's all kinds of ways of optimizing using data sets that we don't do, but I really think are quite entertaining and fun and end up with a much better product.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. Because I'm an Avengers fan. So maybe Stark didn't die on the A/B testing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it goes as far as plot point, but I was watching the recent Spider-Man movie that came out, and I could feel like this is the emotional swell and the emotional drop, like the humor moment. I could tell that they had carefully placed those moments. So I don't know for sure. I don't have any insight into what they're testing or not, but you can really feel a really strong emotional reaction if it's a very carefully curated experience.
I'm going to keep that in mind for next movies. Cool. So now going to Experiment Zone. Why should someone, let's say like me, I've got a podcast, should partner with a CRO agency like yourselves?
Yeah, anybody who's looking to turn more of their visitors into customers can benefit from CRO. So if you're making an investment to create visitors, so the bottom of the equation, and you want more of those to become customers, the percentage of your conversion rate, that's where that partnership can come in. So what we do and what we love to do is to not just look at the surface data, but we want to go layers and layers deep. So oftentimes you're able, and I'm sure that you could easily jump in and understand where some of your drop off is, but you may not have the time, you may not have the energy, but just might not be very fun for you. So partnering with an agency who loves to go deep, loves to own that part of your process, and you get to just show up and be part of the strategic discussions around what we do or not, I think is a great experience and can really move the needle for your business.
Nice. In terms of case studies, what's been like an example that you've seen just a major improvement and just blew completely off the scale, thinking, wow, this is a real changeover. Even the business owner was thinking, oh my goodness, how can this happen? Something, do you have a great story that you can share with us and, enlighten the world despite?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say before we even go into it, when we talk about conversion improvements, we're usually talking incremental. It's a bunch of small changes that add up to a big change for the business. This is an example of not that. This is one change that really moved the needle. So we were working with a customer last summer, and we were focused on converting their paid traffic. And they had very nice, curated branded pages that spoke directly to that audience, but they were quite lengthy. So a common theme I think that's emerging today is if something's lengthy, we should ask, are we adding value with that extra information? So rather than just try to remove things or kind of take a stab at it without really understanding what was valuable or not, we did a series of interviews with their sales team and heard about how they close. So once they had a lead, how do you close the business? What is the last conversation like? And what's the first conversation like? And so we took the information that they said, which was, we talk about how we're different. They don't talk about all the details. They don't talk about every product feature. They say, here's the 3 reasons that you're going to work with us instead of our competitors. So we built a really simple page that was maybe a page and a half, 2 pages total in scroll length. and it outperformed the very detailed, very thoughtful approach by over 100%. So just by getting the right information and very focused information, it helped dramatically improve conversion.
Wow. I almost jumped the gun saying you probably would like cut each part of the page and you go like funnel. And then, I mean, you've got these, I've seen a lot of times you've got a funnel or start of a funnel, and then they go to another page and you go another page and another page. And that's what I thought you're going to do. But that's kind of amazing. Wow. And so, I mean, what's been maybe a very important lesson you probably learn working with clients at Experience Zone?
Yeah, I know it's my own bias coming in as a UX researcher, and I've just been sitting with this hypothesis of research really makes a difference for this. And so most of our clients come to us wanting A/B testing, and we love to do A/B testing. We do lots of testing, but we don't do A/B testing in silo. We always partner it with research and analytics. And so the biggest learning to me is that when we do the research and when we reveal those insights, the businesses just didn't know they were missing out on them. They know that they have a conversion problem. They know they want that to be improved, but just the amount of connection and understanding and that aha moment of, wow, I didn't know. And those are the really fun moments of we're so glad that we did that research. We're so glad we went layers and layers deep for you to provide this. And not only does it impact what we're doing, but it could impact their entire business strategy, how they think about marketing, all those other efforts, how they're thinking about the products they're serving up. So when we have the opportunity to do something that not just impacts our piece of the puzzle, but can be carried out to the whole organization, that feels really good. And we're always looking for that.
Yeah. It's always learning day by day, right?
Always looking to learn something, always finding the right questions to ask.
How long does it take for you to actually do a complete research for a client? And again, we can be subjective, but generally speaking.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's research can be on a scale. If you think of the way university would do it, it'd be years and years, right? We do research in a very practical, let's keep it a very focused on a single question so we can get the answer more quickly. So typically our research cycles are about maybe a month, 3 to 4 weeks, end to end to define it, research it, and report it out. A/B testing can take less time or more time depending on traffic. So if we're talking about A/B testing, it's anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 8 weeks, depending on what our client site is, how much traffic the page gets, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, you can make a lot of progress within 1 quarter, both with A/B testing and research.
Interesting, because that really can change the whole business in 1 year, actually, because if you know who you're talking to, and I think it's one big problem that even I face sometimes. I keep thinking, oh, am I speaking to this person? Maybe I'm not, especially on this podcast or anything else in my life. Yeah, cool. So now maybe more of an entrepreneurial personal question. If you'd have, for the young entrepreneurs, what would be, or if you were 18 starting out, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, looking back?
Yeah, looking back.
So looking back at when I was 18 years old, I stayed in my first job too long. So this is, if you're unhappy, there's something you really want to do that's different than you're doing today, get the ball rolling, put the pieces in place, line up for the next thing. So that's probably more general career advice than specific to entrepreneurs. But, I think the best thing to do is to take defined risk. So don't just throw everything away, just guess it, right. But instead say, I'm going to have this. I love thinking about everything in my life is an experiment, including my company, including our clients, everything's an experiment. So thinking about things like, how can I experiment with my career? How will I get enough signal that is something I love to do, or something I can afford to do, or something I want to do? Is it something the market wants? So I think the mistake that a lot of us make, and I probably was making at 18, was you jump to action. You jump to go do something, or you wait for it to come to you. And you have to find that right balance in the middle of saying, how can I take steps today to indicate, is this the right way forward for me or not?
Awesome. Future of digital marketing, especially in your area. How do you see it? What do you see the future,
Ooh,
especially with metaverse and all
all the different platforms?
All the different platforms. It's getting way too much. It's there. I've seen there's another one coming up with, I don't know, it's so many of them, it gets overwhelmed in terms of I just can't keep up. But what do you think it's the future of digital marketing?
Yeah, I think we're going through an expansion right now. So there's more ways to connect to your customer than ever before. There's new formats, video, the metaverse, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to start becoming more clear. And I think we're actually coming towards simplification, which sounds, I think we go through these cycles of like, we're all wondering what it is we're going to do. Like think about social media, pre-Facebook, there were a whole bunch of networks, but we all kind of gravitated to one and there was a new normal there. And then the same thing's kind of happening now. So with marketing, I think it's very similar. We're exploring how to connect with our customer. There's all these different tools and platforms. I complain probably weekly about how many different apps I have to be on to make sure to connect to all my friends and colleagues and everyone. And so I think we're going through a period of change in so many ways: communication, the way we work, the way the world is, and how we connect to each other. And inevitably, that's going to impact how we connect with our customers and how we market to them. So I think there's definitely a shift. You hear some conversations about the shift from like kind of billboard, we're here, learn about us, kind of advertising strategy, to more engagement, like education provided marketing. Like we're going to engage with you, provide value up front before you're committing to working with us or buying our product. Right. So I think that's like maybe the thematic change that we're going through right now. In the future, we'll be doing optimization, the metaverse, or some version of that. And it'll be wild and fun. We'll be testing out which experience of the store, you've recreated in the metasphere is better. So I think at the end of the day, it's just like the same thing. The bottom line of all of it is connection, and it's just what format it's going to be.
Awesome. Well, if clients, listeners, viewers would like to know about more what you do, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can find us at experimentzone.com. There's some opportunities there. I want to mention a giveaway that we have, which is if you want to get started with conversion rate optimization, you're not sure what to do, you want to kind of test out how you're doing today. We do have a free report card on our site, so no strings attached. You can download it, check it out. But that would be a great tool to check out if you're curious about getting started with CRO. Awesome.
Well, AJ, thank you so much for your time. It's been very insightful for me, especially. And I hope to perhaps speak to you soon or speak to you in the future about various things on what's coming in digital marketing as well, and how things are going in the research side of things. So nevertheless, thank you so much. Have a great week. Wish you all the blessings and success for Experience Zone, and we'll chat soon.
Great. Thanks so much for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Cheers.